Now we have with us Air Commodore, retired Dr. Haque Shamsi, Defence Analyst from Islamabad. Thank you for your time, sir. Now, tell us, sir, why do you think India chose the path of aggression in 1965?
Actually, India was perhaps left with no option, and they probably miscalculated the resolve of Pakistan armed forces and the people of Pakistan. And they thought that they will be able to cow down Pakistan armed forces, and that is why perhaps they decided to impose a war on Pakistan. And perhaps their intelligence failed to visualize or report to the government that Pakistan was already prepared for it, especially Pakistan Air Force, which was already prepared for any kind of misadventure by the Indians. And this miscalculation, whenever war breaks out, it is the outcome of certain miscalculations by the leadership which gives a go-ahead for the war. And India did make that mistake in 1965 and perhaps again in 2019.
Also, sir, how did Pakistan manage to defeat an army many times bigger and better equipped at that time?
Yeah, I think a very, very pertinent question. Preparation, initiative, courage. Because Pakistan Armed Forces decided to take the war into enemy land, which the Indians were not expecting. Because general rule is 1:3, and India was already 4 times larger. So they thought that they will be able to cow down the Pakistan Armed Forces because they are numerically superior. And at that time, they had the equipment also and wherewithal to undertake that kind of operation, which they thought they have carefully planned. But this is where they made the mistake, because when they crossed the international border, they were surprised that the Pakistan was prepared and more than their expectation. The response was very swift, particularly from the Air Force, because Air Force, the way it came in for the support of Pakistan Army, it actually impeded the advance of Indian Army in Chawinda and the Cham sector and in the Lahore zone as well. So that is where India failed to, as you say, the Chinese sage Sun Tzu, that you must know your enemy. And if you know the enemy, you need not to worry about the outcome of the battle. India did not know Pakistan as a prepared enemy, whereas Pakistan knew what India would do and what India can do. This is very important, and that is why Pakistan, being numerically inferior as far as the number was concerned, and we were outnumbered in every department. I mean, be it Pakistan Army, be it Pakistan Air Force, be it Pakistan Navy. But the way we performed and outperformed, that was because of the leadership's offensive mindset. We decided to take the war into their land, which they did not expect. They thought it will be a walkover and they will have evening tea in Lahore Gymkhana. So that is where I think they miscalculated, and they don't have a face to show. Even after so many decades of this war, we very proudly celebrate this day because we proved equal to the task.
Right. Also, do we have heroes like Rafiki, Cecil and Yunus in the PAF right now as well?
February 19 is not too far back in the history, isn't it? Broad daylight, within 10 minutes, 2 fighter jets downed, isn't it? One of them falling inside Pakistani controlled territory, and the pilot was captured and gracefully returned after necessary documentation, isn't it? So Pakistan, Alhamdulillah, and armed forces in general and Pakistan Air Force in particular leads the way. Actually, whenever Pakistan's airspace is challenged or the international boundary is challenged. And we did that in 65, and we've done that, Alhamdulillah, in 2019 as well. that because this is how you build your credibility. The psychological ascendancy which Pakistan Air Force gained over 4 times larger Indian Air Force in 1965 is maintained till this date. And that is why in 2019, when Prime Minister of Pakistan announced that India, if carries out any misadventure, Pakistan will not think, it will act. And that is what we did. Broad daylight on 27th morning, whereas a night before India had carried out the airspace violation and undertook an unsuccessful airstrike in Balakot area, destroying only 4 or 5 trees over there. Whereas when Pakistan's Prime Minister had warned them, but they did not take him seriously. And they thought that these are mere rhetoric words. But when the Pakistan Air Force chief said that, sir, we are ready, and he got a go-ahead, and very next day, broad daylight, 10 o'clock in the morning, within 10 minutes, 2 aeroplanes are down. And now India does not have a face. I mean, just claiming that they have also downed an F-16, whereas the Americans did their countdown in Pakistan. And recently, I think Christine Fair has also told in India that no, you were not able to shoot down their F-16. It's a false claim. Whereas we were able to show the debris of the downed aircraft and the pilot also. So nation should not have any doubt that Rafiqis and Alams and Shabirs and yours are reborn or not. The raw talent is available throughout the Pakistan. What Pakistan Air Force does it, that recruits them on merit, trains them with whatever resources we have, and polishes them and hones them into Rafiqis and Alams and yours, and that is why we have Hassans and Nomans even in 2021, 2019.
Right, so lastly, doctrinal implications in contemporary times in regional air war possibilities, sir.
I think it's an ongoing process. Doctrinal changes, they keep on evolving. But one thing is for sure, that air power is an offensive weapon, and it has to be employed offensively. This is what Pakistan Air Force taught the world in 1965, being smaller but carried out an offensive defense strategy and proved its worth. Whereas in 1989, the Gulf War I in Operation Desert Storm, the same was repeated by Allied and NATO forces against almost not comparable Air Force, that is Iraqi Air Force. And within first 100 hours, air dominance was achieved by them. And since then, air power leading the way or leading the future war has become the mantra. Whereas Pakistan Air Force had proved it back in 1965. And the same was repeated, Alhamdulillah, on February 27, 2019. So it's a continuous process with the advancement in technology. The air strategy keeps evolving. But remember, air power is an offensive weapon. It cannot be deployed by passive manner.
Absolutely, and Pakistan Air Force certainly is the pride of Pakistan. Air Commodore retired Dr. Ziaul Haq Shamsi, thank you for talking to Indus News.